Well, this video might be shorter than I thought it was going to be, because apparently I have 20% battery on a battery that I thought was fully charged. And my extra battery just died. So I think we're within days of an Iranian nuclear site on the west coast of Iran that starts with a B. I think it's going to be hit. And I think it's going to be an indication that we are within days of some pretty interesting financial events taking place. But none of that's going to matter. I've been thinking about months for how to say this, but I understand everyone's excited about the wealth transfer and is excited about these events that are going to happen. But there needs to be a huge wake-up call within the wealth transfer community, because having money in your bank account will not make you rich. And there's kind of been this delusion that's been going around that people think, oh, well, if I have money, then I'm rich and then everything's going to be okay. And I dare to ask, what separates you from a lottery winner? Because at this present moment, the answer is going to be nothing. And there's proof of concept of this in the Bible. I had a dream about Moses a couple of years ago. And somebody made a comment on one of my previous videos like, hey, we haven't seen you for a while. That's because I've been changing. I've been busy changing. And in this dream that I had, I realized that Moses didn't lead anybody anywhere. He didn't lead anyone into the promised land. And he didn't lead anyone into the promised land because he never changed. And we know because he responded in anger and killed an Egyptian in Egypt. And then he responded in anger and hit the rock instead of speak to it. And so it wasn't that God was punishing him. Moses himself never changed, just like the Israelites didn't change. So because they were trying to bring their old Egyptian thinking and Egyptian habits and all these things of Egypt, and they were trying to bring it into the promised land, it didn't work. So, you know, there's this grace period entering where a bunch of people are going to be made very, very rich. And you think like, oh, God has blessed me. You are going to lose all of it if you don't change. Because for years, you've had this idea that I'm poor and I need money, and I'm poor and I need God to save me. And what most people don't realize is there's 3 different levels of wealth, and most people are not tapped into any of them. The first level is that God has already met all of your needs according to his riches and glory. It's already happened. That's why it's spoken in past tense. Most people sit there wondering, are my needs going to get met? God's already met them. That is like a lifelong, forever guarantee. The next level is tapping into this realization that the blessing of the Lord has made you rich. That is your true heritage, your true nature. So understanding that that blessing has already made you rich, it tunes you into a different frequency. So there's a range of different frequencies, from like fear and shame, all the way up to like love, joy, peace, and enlightenment, or there's a lot of different phrases for it, but it's basically realizing who you are. And so when you realize that there's a blessing in place already that has already made you rich, you start to tap into that. You're suddenly not sitting there thinking about, I don't have money. You're aware of all these different ways that you can make money and be a blessing to people at the same time, right? Create a win-win scenario. The third level, and the most important, is that you've been given the power to create wealth. And there's a book that I think everyone should read. It's called The Big Leap by a man named Gay Hendricks. And this book basically talks about how all of us have this zone of genius, this thing that we were created to do, that only we can do, and we're the only ones who can do it the way that we're supposed to do it. And most people never get into this, mostly because they think that they need money. And so if you think you need money and you think you're not rich, you can't tap into the power to create wealth, because your entire capacity is going into survival mode. So when you're in survival mode, you just survive. there is no higher level than that. So it actually takes this change in consciousness. Well, Matt, how do I change in consciousness? You have to change what you think about. And so over the last 2 years, I've basically gone through this transformation where I'm now at this point where I go to the gym 6 or 7 days a week. I meditate 2 or 3 times a day. And some of you are like, oh, meditation. Do you know your Bible tells you to meditate on the Word day and night? And yet, how many are focused on Fox News and CNN and all the destruction? And I'm like, yeah, but didn't your Bible tell you to focus on whatever's good and lovely and of the good report? And you're consuming all this fear porn. Like, do you not see how you're not even doing what the Bible tells you to do? So it's funny to me how some people seem so uneasy with meditation, and yet actually in the Bible several times there's an instruction to meditate. But if people aren't tuned in and aware to that, this ties into a lot of what's going to come out of the Catholic Church and knowledge that's been hidden for a long time. And when that comes out, if not before that, I'm hoping people catch it before. But if not, people will understand that meditation is actually a really important thing because it activates the right hemisphere of your brain. So most people use 10%. They're only ever tapped into 10%. But when you start to meditate and meditate consistently, and then you start to eat properly and put the proper things into your body, and then you start to create and you actually start to act like the person that you're supposed to be, all the fear goes away, all of the anxiety, any of these like negative emotions. Because for a long time, I was like, how does somebody get rid of negative thoughts? And then I started to clean up my diet and it got better. And then I started to exercise and it got better. And then I got into meditation. And I'm pretty sure at this point that, you know, a lot of the Jews will pray at 9, noon, and 3. I don't think it was prayer time. I think that was supposed to be a meditation time. Because when you're able to meditate and you're able to quiet your mind and you're able to tap into the right hemisphere and you're able to make this shift, and people are like so scared of this because they've been told by religion you can't touch that. And yet I'm like, do you remember the last time that there was like some criminal on TV who meditated and committed a crime? Because I don't. And then I start to see like Joe Dispenza, and I hated him like years ago. I hated him. I wanted nothing to do with him. I thought it was so evil and bad. And now I'm looking at like testimonial videos from his workshops, and I'm going, people are getting healing from meditation. And then it hit me. Joe Dispenza has said this for years. People don't meditate to heal, they meditate to change. And if you look at Matthew 6:22, it says that if your eye be single, your whole body will be filled with light. And it might get cut off here because my battery's going to die. So I might have to add on to this later. The eye, it's not eyes plural. If you look into it, it's eye singular. As in the pineal gland in your head. That is the eye that it's talking about. And the way to get your eye single is through meditation. And so when you get in that point, Joe Dispenza had talked about how they had people who had meditated 3 times a day for 4 days straight for 15 minutes at a time. So 45 minutes a day total. And they noted physiological changes in their body. Why? Because when your eye is single, your entire body is filled with light. I believe our entire body is supposed to be filled with light. And when it's not, it doesn't work properly. And so I am on day number 3 right now, because I've been working on increasing my meditation. So right now I'm on day 3, where I will have meditated for 3 times in a single day. Right? Jonah was in the whale for 3 days. Jesus was in the grave for 3 days. And then what happened after 3 days? There was a resurrection that happened. They became new people. Are you catching the symbolism here? Because most of the Bible was not meant to be taken literally. It was allegory. It was a story. There was a deeper meaning behind it. It's just so many people have taken things so literally when it was never meant to be interpreted that way. And this is where God has led me. And I'm at the point where I've completely overhauled my diet. I eat no junk at all. I meditate. I'm peaceful inside. And I'm really curious to see what happens on that 4th day that I meditate for 3 times. Because what I believe is it puts an end to the flesh man and taps you into the spirit side. Right? People want to villainize the third eye, and I'm like, why would you villainize something that God gave you? He didn't give it to you by mistake. It wasn't like a demon went and planted the pineal gland in your brain. Like, do you ever wonder why you've been told to fear that? Do you ever wonder why you've been told not to meditate? Do you ever wonder why you've been told, like, don't do this, don't enter this, don't... Why? Who doesn't want you to do that? My battery is going to die, so I'm going to end this video here, and then just, I'll do another video today or tomorrow or something, but I'm just wanting to put this out there, like, if you don't change, you could have $1 billion in your bank account and you will still go broke. So your thinking has to change, your thoughts, your emotions, all of this has to change. And so after the revaluation happens, for those who want to make that change, I plan to have a group for that to happen. And understand this is not going to be a super quick process. This is going to be something that takes time and repetition because you're building new habits and it's going to take energy and it's going to be tiring. Ask me how I know. This has been a 2-year thing for me. But I know that I'm different now and I'm so much more equipped to go into the wealth transfer and these things that are going to happen and to increase and prosper from them. It's not God's job to make you rich. If you sit and do nothing, nothing is going to happen in your life. We see that with the parable of the talents, right? The guy that had 5 took his and doubled his. The guy that had 2 took his and doubled his. And the guy that had nothing, well, he had 1. Even what he had was taken from him because he didn't use it. God didn't go to him and be like, oh, it's okay, you buried it in the field, I'll do something with it. That's not how it works. That's why God says, I've given you the choice of life or death, blessings and curses. You choose, but choose life. Right? It comes up to a choice that we make and actions that we take. So I'm going to end this now because I don't know when my battery is going to die. But just have an honest conversation with yourself and ask if what you're doing is working, and if it's not, and hasn't been for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, maybe it's time to ask God to show you why it's not working and what to change. Just a thought.